active circuitry, and this is our regular podcast where we will be sharing some curated articles concerning cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and how all these mesh together to affect your children, your kids. So if you are interested in this topic, do stay tuned. We have curated three articles that I myself will be reading right now, and we'll be going through these articles to see. These are quite important updates, and we thought that it might be interesting to share these articles with you. So, um, well, the title of this podcast is about Roblox requiring scans, right, of your face. Then apart from that, we'll be sharing some articles on skills that can protect kids from harms of social media. Then in addition to that, there's a very interesting news that is Meta threatens to shut down Instagram, Facebook in New Mexico if judge orders impractical kids protection. So let's just go through this article from Yahoo Live, but it was originally from CNN. So the title of this article is "This skill can protect kids from harms of social media," and so this is a picture of a kid playing with blocks, and the caption says that teaching kids the skill of critical thinking early on can protect them from misinformation and other online dangers. Well, this is the take that I always have. That is, try not to ban kids from social media, or some uh, games that maybe might be a little bit seems to be a little bit harmful, but somehow rather you get to expose them progressively and teach them about the different aspects of the game or the platform that they are using, and explain to them why is it dangerous, how do you behave when you encounter certain situation, as if like when strangers chat you up. So what happens if that happens? Do you trust them? Do you engage in them? Do you block them? So these are the things that you got to teach them from a very young age. I've been emphasizing on that in our previous podcast. But anyway, we don't have a lot of podcasts. This is the second podcast that our company has. The first one was just launched last week, and we tried to launch it. We try to launch this podcast like once every week. And the purpose of this podcast is to share with you important information about cybersecurity, about this AI, about children. And the thing is, if you are using a lot of podcast, you are using your kids goes on to a lot of this online platform, remember to download ActiveGuard. It is our cybersecurity product, and it leverages the premium subscribers leverages more than 4 million plus signals from our AI cybersecurity engine, and it grows more intelligent every day. That means the protection for your kids grow even more intelligent, even more stronger every single day. Anyway, let's just go straight to this article. So this is written, advised by someone called Kara, and she's a professor of communications at the League Dickinson University, and she advises parents, students, and teachers on how to manage screen time. This is a very important topic. In fact, this thing should be elevated and surfaced more often, because now, if you realize, a lot of parents, they have delegated parenting not to the domestic helpers, not to the nannies, not to the grandparents, not to the teachers, but rather to the tablet and to the iPhones, to the Android phones, and so on. So now, if you go out to a canteen, cafe, cafeteria, restaurant, what you see is that parents bringing kids out for lunch and dinners, right? So the parent would be fully engaged in her phone or his phone, and the kids will be engaged in their own phone as well. And from a very young age, the kids are watching tablets, and the parents most likely would have downloaded some special software for them to view the content, or they will just let them view YouTube Kids. So as you do that, right, the parents, they have more time to themselves, I guess. But then again, you don't really know what goes on between the interaction between the kids and the devices. So I think that this will only get more and more prevalent over the years. And that's why I think that we really need more people researching into this topic. But anyway, thanks to Kara for surfacing this. She's promoting her book, Over the Influence: Why Social Media is Toxic for Women and Girls. I wonder why not for boys and guys. It's equally toxic to us as well if we get exposed to the wrong things, and how we can take it back. She published this book in 2024. And then she was saying that to protect kids from harms of social media, some of us have proposed banning social networks for young people or delaying the age at which they use them. One expert has another solution: teaching kids critical thinking so they know how to be safe online. I never thought that banning social network is ever going to work, but I'm of the take that, let's say, if you watch TikTok, so you have all kinds of content, right? And some of the content are just not suitable for young children. And even the CEO of TikTok has said before, that is, he doesn't even let his own children watch TikTok. But then again, I do recognize that you can pick up languages easily if by using social media platforms like TikTok or Facebook or Instagram or something like that. I mean, more platform that leverages video content instead of Instagram, because Instagram is mainly photographs. But when you watch all these contents, right, you get exposed to a lot more knowledge. You get exposed to behaviors and cultural behaviors from different races, which I think is a good thing. But however, we must always understand that all these content creators, they don't really go through any type of regulation, which means that they can produce any type of content as they want, as long as it generates attention. So if we go by this line of thought, it means that more content creator will try to create content that gets your attention. And because there's no regulation in this part, right, they don't regulate them, so it means that they can generate any kind of content, okay, but subjected to TikTok's vetting team. But then again, it means that sometimes, I prefer kids to watch facts, non-fiction things. So in that way, they can learn as they watch and get their entertainment as well. But you must understand that there's a limit to how stringent these vetting team at Facebook and at TikTok, how they can only operate to the best that they can. They won't know, they can't differentiate between facts and non-facts. So some of these content creators, I noticed that they have started to produce non-facts, and in fact, these are just blatant lies. But this content just manages to capture the attention of children, and paired up with some creative music, so it really hooks the children into consuming more of this content, which I think is actually, that's where the harms of social media is coming from, because they are exposed to so many of these lies that are generated in order to get attention. And these lies, they're not from government bodies, they're not from like disinformation campaigns from foreign governments. They are from individual social content creators who just wants to generate attention in order to get more viewership, to get more likes, to get more shares. And in order to get more shares, you have to You have to do content that really shocks you, that is really disgusting, or that is, it tends towards that kind of thing. So that's where I feel that that's where a lot of social harms are coming from. So now she says that to protect kids from the harms of social media, some some of them have proposed banning social network for young people. This I don't really agree. And I don't really agree to delaying the age at which they use them as well, because it's not like um, you delay a kid from using TikTok. A kid can only use TikTok only when she is like 18 years old, 16 years old, or 12 years old. But it doesn't mean that when she's 12 years old, she automatically gets the awareness uh, uh, to have critical thinking for all this kind of, to apply critical thinking to all this kind of social media content. So it doesn't just happen that way. You still have to progressively train them in critical thinking before they can apply as best as they can the limit of their critical thinking to the growing supply of these social content. Now, let me just get back to the article. She said that as a professor, I've seen a decline in the ability of average college students to make or refute strong arguments over the past decade. Probably at least partly because constantly, well, probably at least because partly because constantly checking their screens has left them unable to focus. I'm not the only one who noticed. This lack of critical thinking, of course, can make them vulnerable to misinformation, scams, and other dangers online. Yeah, so I don't really think that they are unable to focus, because they can really focus on watching the TikTok. It's just that the focus, the way they focus has changed. They still can focus. Kids can use TikTok or use YouTube Shorts for 1 hour, at least 1 hour, and that is a kind of focus. But the focus has changed a little bit. The way they learn has changed. Well, this made me think of the days when television first appeared. My dad told me that they used to read a lot of books, and they engage in a lot of storytellings. They read newspapers. They listen to storytellers telling stories. They listen intently to the radio. Then television came up, and they said the people during that period of time, they said that television is going to destroy the young children's focus. They're going to destroy the young children's attention span, which uh, you might agree to a certain extent, but that's not really the case, right? Because if you investigate deeper, you the kids produced during that age, when they're born in between 1950s to 1960s to 70s, right? They A lot of them produce a lot of them grow up to produce a lot of good work, and a lot of those pioneering work produced by people of that age, they are still um, benefiting our society right now. So even though the people of that age, the adults of that age, they claim that children who were exposed to television uh, are having their attention span destroyed by television technology, but it appears to be not so. They still grew up well. They produce a lot of good stuff, and in a way, is those people who are born in the 1960s, 1970s, they are the people who transform and elevated a lot of industry from the old traditional industry to what we are presently enjoying right now. Imagine, the way we browse for information. We got to connect through dial up and so on. Then now we have really fast internet. We have those days they created instead of going to BB boards forums, they created excellent browsing applications, browsers in short, like Netflix, like Netscape, like Mozilla, and there's so many things. Internet Explorer, all these things are like the inventions during that time, and it did benefited a lot of people during that age. But maybe they couldn't read as much as well when the television technology came out. Maybe they couldn't read as much because their attention span is actually did reduce. It did reduce. I won't say it reduced, but it really changed the way they consume information. It changed the way their brain function. I would say that their brain function a little bit faster. And now you have shorts, and people claim that the focus is being attacked. The children's focus is shortening, is decreasing, and is affecting their studies. But on the other hand, because I work with a lot of students, well, I'll say that I'll work with students who really want to apply themselves to becoming better. So it's a sample, but these students, right? I noticed that they also like to use YouTube Shorts. They also like to watch TikTok. But I observed that they actually think faster. They obtain information faster, and now paired up with AI, right? You see these kids, they are using computers to use AI to form study plans, to ask questions. They ask the AI to generate uh, this test for them. So there's this Microsoft. You see, just show you this. I never like to use Microsoft. Was this? I never ever thought of using Microsoft Edge browser. I always hated it because I thought that it's just so unintuitive. But now I have a different thought to this Microsoft Edge browser. Oh, they have this function, right? So basically this is Copilot, and you can think. There's a smart function, thinks deeply or quickly based on the task, or you can choose to think deeper, which is better for more complex topics. And this one, you have the function to study and learn, so you can generate quizzes, guided learning, and more. So based using this, right, students are learning faster. And because of all these technology and the way they consume facts through TikToks and YouTube shorts, they are learning faster than before. They are doing mathematics better than before. So that is why I wouldn't say that they are unable to focus, but they have changed the way they focus. They have changed the way they learn, and they are going to change the way they create new things in the future. That's my take. I don't think that they are unable to focus. I think that changing the way they learn, they're going to change the way they produce. But the author, she said that this lack of critical thinking, oh, okay, now she says that it's critical thinking. It's not just focus. This lack, so there's a difference between focus and critical thinking, because you can be unable to focus, but still you can do critical thinking. You can focus, but yet you cannot do critical thinking. So there's a big difference in that. But now she says that this lack of critical thinking, of course, can make them vulnerable to misinformation, scams, and other dangers online. Okay, not sure how to teach them this skill. And in her new book, Teaching Critical Thinking to Teenagers, How Kids Can Be Street Smart About AI, Algorithms, Fake News, and Social Media, Dr. Mary Davis explains the way to do it. I spoke to Davis, a senior lecturer of education and social practice at New Zealand's University of Auckland, about what parents should do and why it can also give kids a leg up in the job market. All right, so this article was actually edited in a form of an interview conversation. So CNN asked the question, and Dr. Mary Davis answers the question. Oh, that's weird. Okay, that's how they form the article. First, they start off with uh, Dr. Kara of Fairleigh Dickinson University with her book and some phrases of her. Then it transited into an interview with an interview of CNN with Dr. Mary Davis. Oh, that's a weird way to format your article. Anyway, let me just go through. So CNN asked her, "What is critical thinking?" Then Dr. Mary Davis say, "Critical thinking is the ability to carefully question, analyze, or evaluate information or ideas before deciding what to believe or do. It often involves considering counter arguments and weighing evidence to determine which claim or argument is the strongest." So that's the thing about taking in information in that, when children they scroll through shorts and TikTok shorts, right? It's a very continuous process, as in they keep scrolling through the different shorts. And when you look at a shot with a particular, you look at a shot that is actually fake. It's talking about fake news, right? Now, what is not very intuitive for the user to look at the shot that is fake, then she decides that, oh, I need to check whether if this is authentic. Then let me go do some research on it. Okay, so it's not very intuitive for users to do that. What they do is that they read one particular shot, they watch one particular shot. Okay, so it's fake. And what they do is they just scroll to the next one. So they just keep scrolling. So it's nonstop. So if you, as a responsible, I mean, if I were on the vetting team, if I'm the director in the vetting team, maybe I would have the algorithm to um, do up the algorithm in such a way that this content of specific topic all pair them up together. If the users they like to watch this particular content, of course we have to show them more in order to get their attention, but we need to alternate between different views so that they don't see the same thing. Like, let's say I'm watching a short that teaches me how to cook eggs with cold water, and then after cooking it with cold water, I put it in the fridge to freeze it and to make ice cream or something like this. And this gathers a lot of attention. It's like, wow, I've never seen people making ice cream using frozen egg and so on. And because it gathers a lot of attention, right? A lot of content creators start creating the same content, and because of the algorithm determines that you like this kind of content, then um, it keeps showing you the same type of video. 100 people making using frozen eggs to make ice cream by using the cold water and refrigeration method. Then of course, if you repeat enough times, right, then it becomes a fact to the kid. But if I want to be more responsible, then maybe I would devise the algorithm in such a way that it shows different methods of making eggs so that the kids they get exposed to different types of videos, different types of content, and from there they can see that, oh, uh, in order to make eggs, you got to have heat. You need to generate heat to cook the egg, destroy the bacteria, and so on. And then there's this particular process. Then they can compare between the different processes. Then they know that, oh, using cold water and the freezing method is funny, but it's not real. Then just laugh it off. So that's one way that they can build the algorithm responsibly. But I don't think, yeah. So this is what I think, right? So she goes on, CNN goes on to say that you say critical thinking is the most important thing we can teach kids to protect them on social media. Why? So Davies said, if you also, this is Dr. Mary Davis, the author of a book. I'm doing promotion for her. If you understand critical thinking, then when you see something online, your mind automatically thinks, hang on a minute, is that right? Yeah, but the thing is that that's what I said. Users, they don't keep on thinking, is hang on a minute, is that right? Hang on a minute, is that right? As they scroll, they don't keep thinking that. The way user watches the content and think is that they just consume. they keep on consuming. So in order to help them to do critical thinking, the algorithm have to do a part in showing different ways that content is being created, so that as you scroll, you are exposed to different variation of the content. Then you will slowly develop the critical thinking because you are comparing the different methods. That is more intuitive. That is more, and any platform that uses this kind of algorithm, I'll say that they are responsible. That they are more responsible, and I would get my kids to watch this kind of use this kind of platform as compared to a dump algorithm. So your mind, let's go back to the interview. She said your mind automatically thinks, hang on a minute, is that right? Maybe I should find further information. Is that true for everyone? Uh, well, that's her thoughts. Teaching teenagers to do that about anything, not just social media, is better than banning social media. If we ban it, it's not like kids will wake up on their 16th birthday and suddenly are very savvy about using social media and understand how algorithms work. So instead of everyone shouting at them saying, you're spending too much time on screen, the key is instilling self efficacy. If you understand how different platforms and algorithm work, you're going to be more savvy. I think that this can also, at some level, help with anxiety. Anxiety is about not having control. So if you know critical thinking, then you've got these tools. Then CNN asked Davis, how can parents teach our kids to think critically? Then David said, to foster curiosity, you can say things like such as, I just saw something on the news. They said such and such, and that sounds amazing. Let's go find out more. You're modeling that behavior of finding out more, rather than looking at other sources, being curious and being an interested person in the world. Well, I can't disagree with that. Then she says, you're not going to say to your 14-year old, what evidence do you have for that? You say something like, oh, I'm not so sure about that. What have you seen or heard that make you say that? Yeah, don't ever say that. What evidence do you have for that to your 14-year-old kid? Even to sometimes I work with 8 years old and 9 year old kids. If you say that, what evidence do you have for that? Because now an 8 year old kid is going to think like a 14-year-old kid in the past. They are no longer the 8 years old of the past. Now, 8 years old, they are very good in mathematics, very advanced in mathematics. They are doing factors, they're doing ratios, they're doing very, very complex mathematics for that age. They're able to handle different kinds of mathematics. They're exposed to different kinds of news. They are used to different kinds of technology. They know about artificial intelligence. They know coding. They even know the algorithms that goes into coding, the artificial intelligence. So if and they themselves, the schools, they put in a lot of effort to helping these kids. So if you suddenly go, the kid comes up and share with you something, some insights that they have, then suddenly you shoot at them. What evidence do you have for that? Or even if you don't put it in such a bad tone, you put it in a nicer. So what evidence do you have for that? But to them, it's just like, hey, you're not believing me. I'm I'm learning all these things in school. I'm learning from so many sources, and yet you're coming to me and to that. But I wouldn't know how kids from society that really don't promote encourage education that much, or well, I'm not sure about that. So I say you see something like, I'm not sure about that. What have you seen or make you heard that? Well, that's a good way to approach the kids. Now, if teenagers only see information that's going to get them to pass exam, many of them disengage because it's just a means to an end. Critical thinking fosters being curious about the world, and that's very helpful for motivation and engagement. Yeah, so now you have a lot of students who are very into passing the exam instead of just thinking. And very strangely, you have a lot of students who are very into passing the exams rather than training their critical thinking, from places like India, China, Korea, Japan. Japan less so over the years. Japan has been refining their education to really focus on the process rather than the result. So the younger Japanese, they're changing a little bit. They are questioning the status quo, and they don't really just focus on getting good grades, but really focus on the process itself. It's a very process driven society. But for Korea, India, and China, they're still very focused on passing the exam. And you can tell it when you engage them in mathematics, because when you ask a math question, and usually they would have done that type of question 1,000 times. So you can see the downers in their eyes when they handle all these mathematical questions, because they've done this question 1,000 times. But if you decided to change the question a little bit, make it more creative, the way you structure the questioning, it changes in a way that they have never seen it before. And suddenly you can see that their eyes glow up, and you can see the fear in their eyes as they handle this kind of new mathematics question. Whereas if it's a person who is more process driven, they will take every question as it is. There won't be much fear, because they are just there solving each and every question. Every question is new to them. They know the techniques, to the fundamental techniques, but the way you present to them is new. And that's how they approach every single question. Is always different ways of presenting the question to them. So they're just equipped with the fundamental mathematics problem solving skills, but they try to understand, they try to solve it differently, and you see that their eyes don't change at all. It remains the same. For those who are just root based on learn mathematics based on root learning, you can see the fear in their eyes. And that's where you know that they don't really have that aspect of them well trained, and they don't have that critical thinking. So she said that I really encourage parents to use the language of we and say, let's go look that up together. You can acknowledge that it's hard for all of us. We are all victims of algorithms. So we are in it together. It's important that kids don't feel alone. Then kids say it's a good idea to teach teenagers to change their mind. How can we do it? And David said, changing our mind in light of evidence is very, very important. Always model the behavior you want. You might be talking about bike lanes. You say something like, I used to think I didn't want that bike lane on such and such street because I can't park there. But actually, I've changed my mind. I realize that now that it's fantastic, because it means that the bike lane loops up with all those other streets, and I've seen loads of people using it. Then CNA said, you point out that we often teach kids to read and write, but not to converse. Why is that important, and how should we do it? Often, when teenagers are asked to talk at school, is very task based. A teacher says, I want you to do a Venn diagram, and walks around and asks how kids are doing. But in order to have very rich conversations, whether they are online or face to face, they need to be taught high level questioning skills. Otherwise, they tend to use over emotional language or just shoot from the hip. Sienna, you point out that we often teach kids to read and write, but not to converse. So there's the assumption that the younger generation is really bad at communicating right now. But then I would say that it's not really they're really bad at communicating, but I would say that it's the way they communicate has changed a fair bit as well. I have the same take on this, just like what I have on the topic of focus and attention. It's not really that focus is shortening, reducing, but it's the way the focus has changed. So it's not that their communication skill has become lousier over the years, but it's just that it has changed. Because if you see the younger generation coming together during gatherings, and all the younger adults, right, they sit together and they're very quiet. Yeah, everyone is on their phone. So if you use a boomer lens, or if you use your Gen Z lens to analyze them, right, well, it would appear to you that they cannot communicate much. Their communication skill has changed a bit, and they are not really good communicator. But that's because you're using that boomer and Gen Z lenses to analyze them. So if you take away that Gen Z, if you take away that boomer lens, right, you see that you will have a change in perspective about how they are communicating. Because if you see these young adults together, they're quiet, they're all on their phone, but apparently they're all on the same chat group, and they're chatting intensely with each other. And they could be on the same game, and they're on the chatting app, they're chatting with each other intensely. So it is happening at a very fast pace. They're chatting a lot, they're sharing a lot of ideas, they're sharing a lot of insights. So and they are arguing on those chat group, they're sharing a lot of ideas, they're arguing, and it's very productive. But I would say that they're communicating very efficiently and very robustly and very fruitfully on those chatting app, but they are not talking face to face. But a lot of those good communication is going on at the chat level, at the chat group level. So would you say that they are not good communicator? Well, I will define it in a way that they are not communicating. They are not communicating well in the way that you define communication is, but they're communicating well in their own methods. So this means that they have good communication skill, but in the methods that they define as communication skill, they're doing well in that. And the thing is that I am very sure that they see that as when they talk to each other, right? They are judging each other, and they will say that, oh, so and so Gen Z, well, in the same group, sharing so much idea on the chat group. Wow, this guy is really good at expressing his idea. He's really expressive, he's really creative, he's very argumentative. And this discussion is very fruitful. My discussion with him is always very fruitful. And um so that has become the standard of judging whether a person is communicating well. Then as it goes by, right, they become boomers, and their young children come about, there will be new types of communication. And then they will think that these younger generation, they are not communicating well, but in fact they have defined their own communication skill. The skill have changed, the methods have changed. Whether they communicate well or not in that particular communication method, and judging using that method, that becomes very dubious. Okay, you got to judge using the standard that that particular generation is using. So here says that they need to be taught high level questioning skills. They may be applying it. I see a lot of these 8-year-old kids, 9-year-old kids, 10-year-old kids. They're applying really high level questioning skills, but they don't apply it verbally. They are still using their brain, but they're communicating extremely fast on the chat groups with their friends and so on. And the language has changed a bit. So they may not be using the English standard that you are using right now. They have their own lingos, and the language is changing. New words are appearing to define new situations, expressing new terms and so on. So we have to keep up with them and not just use our lens to judge them. Then she says that one of the best skills anyone can pick up is simply saying, "Can you give me an example of that?" When it becomes interactive, you have to think deeper. You have to give an example and justify what you think further. Parents can model that and encourage teenagers to use the language amongst themselves. CNA says, you believe being creative and being able to think critically are going to become more important skills in the job market. Why? Davis replied, if you grow up relying on AI to summarize, generate ideas, and to do the thinking for you, you are not developing those skills. If you never use AI growing up, as if as a child you're drawing and creating with Lego bricks, you're going to be a very creative person. Oh, okay. So what she says is that if you don't use AI, but you draw a lot, you play a lot of Legos, you're going to be a very creative person. But I to some extent I agree with this, but to a very large extent I don't agree with this because when it's like a judgment based on is you're judging the next generation based on your lenses, and there's different windows in the as the years goes by, right? There are different windows between during the years, different ways of doing things. Like my mother used to say that my dad is a very good at driving cars because she thinks that if you drive with the clutch, you are a real driver if you drive with a clutch. And my car is my car doesn't have a clutch. It just have buttons. So you choose the button. Do you want to go into reverse? Do you want to drive? Do you want to go into sport mode and so on? So she thinks that I'm not a real driver. But then she's thinking that she's judging me based on her lens. Then it comes to me, now that because I drive petroleum petroleum fuel induction engine car. So what I do is that well, it's very different from EV cars, electric vehicles. So for a short while, I actually think that those people who drive EVs are not real drivers. But then again, I quickly question myself. Hey, are you using the lens that you use for yourself, that you have grown over the years to judge the younger drivers? And in a way, I was, then I realized that I was my mother. My mother was judging me on the way I drive because of the different technology, the different driving technology. And now, because I've gotten used to the so called new driving technology, which has become outdated. And now, for a while, when I look at EV drivers, I think that those are not real drivers. They don't even know what is fuel induction. Come on. They don't even know this and that and what. But I realize I and my mother, I am judging them, but they are exposed to that technology at that age. So they are just going to use that technology and go from there. Give you one more example. There's this old guy that always says that uh, he's a very prominent CEO of my society. Then he's very skillful at management, but he always tells me that kids of those of his time when he was a young child, kids of that time, they used to play with sand, they used to play with branches, they used to pick up anything on the ground to play and play with insects. They would catch insects. They would go to the beach and catch worms and so on. And well, he says a lot of things, but he says that if you grow up playing with all these things, then you are going to be very creative. Then now you see this person who is, but he grew up to become very creative. And yes, he grew up to be very creative, but the kids of the 1970s, right? They don't play with sand, they don't play with tree branches, they don't go to the beach and catch worms. Some do, but many don't. Maybe if you are from the rural village, you do that. But most likely, if born in the 1970s, you're playing games. You started playing video games, Micro Genius, Nintendo, Sega. all those kind of things. And if you observe people of that age, right, during that age group, they grew up, they don't play with sand, they play video games, they started creating all those kind of things, and they grow up to create a lot of new pioneering work. So who are we to use lenses of the past to judge situation of the future? So we got to change a bit. Now less and less people are playing with Lego. People are playing with Minecraft. People are playing with Roblox. And you can get really creative playing with games like Roblox, because now kids, in order to create games, Roblox games, you have to create coding scripts, and you have to put those scripts into the characters. And these young kids, right, they can recognize that these characters, these avatars, they are AI driven, and they are driven, these kids are driven to produce characters that behave more human like, so that the players, they cannot differentiate between AI characters and real characters. And these developers are very young. They're like 14 years old, 12 years old. And they don't play Lego, but they play digital Lego. They play Roblox, they play Minecraft. And when they play, see some of these kids, when they play Minecraft, they build really fantastic and very creative buildings and structures in their Minecraft scenarios. And they have to do some coding scripts as well. And then they create all these kind of new tools, fashion, weapons. And these kids, they're selling all these weapons at a substantial price. And I read about in a report long time ago, oh, actually not so long, but it's just a few months ago, but few months to me is very long. So these kids, these are the young millionaires that the parents aren't even aware that their kids are young millionaires, because these kids, they're selling all this fashion and all these weapons on these gaming platforms, and they're earning this digital currency, and these their earnings in those accounts can run up to more than 500 USD 500K. 500K, okay? It's not USD 500, it's USD 500K, half a million. So these kids are holding onto account that have in excess of more than half a million, and they don't know how to deal with this account. The parents don't even know that they have so much money, and then they have to be guided on how to manage all this money in their gaming account. And that is why there is a growing profession. That is why a lot of the hackers are drawn to tricking all these young children, because these young children, they have really creative and really bright minds. They're earning a lot of money on all these kind of gaming platform by creating digital assets that people want to buy, and they're amassing all these assets that hackers want to target. So yeah, that's why I say, okay, being creative and being able to think critically is going to be important skills, but it doesn't mean that you only have to be drawing and creating Lego bricks in order to become a very creative person. You can be using AI as well, because young kids now, they're using AI to manage the content of their book. They're writing books. There's this young kid, 9 year old, she wrote books and she was managing the content in a book using AI and so on. And these are very creative because they are using the tools of the future in order to generate all these creative products and services. So you don't have to be drawing, you don't have to be creating with Lego bricks in order to be a creative person. You can be using AI, you can be using all these new tools, and yet you can still be a creative person. You be creative in a new way that people of the past no longer can recognize it as being creative anymore. So don't ever end up to be those person. If you naturally do those things, you're going to be a very flexible employee. An employer is going to love you because you're going to be very adaptable. A great deal of life is problem solving, and if you can't anticipate what problems are going to emerge in the future, and you can't anticipate what problems are going to emerge in the future. So if you're in a business and you hadn't predicted tariff as a problem, you need people in that room who can think and problem solve. You can't just go to AI with problems, because AI is based on existing data. If there's new and emerging problems, you need people who are going to be able to think about them in new and fresh ways. But we keep discussing about AI has its limitation because it's based on past data, right? But the younger people, they know that it's just that. And now they have new ways of thinking, they have new information that they're developing because they're interacting with the world in refreshingly new ways. They're generating new data with their new experiences, and they acknowledge that AI has its limitation, but it's very good at summarizing and organizing all this new data, which is why I feel that it's very important that this new AI, right, the new AI system, it has to be based on transfer learning. That means that it can self-improve with the inputs of the younger generation because the younger generation, are experiencing new experiences that the AI doesn't have at all. And they know that AI is being limited, and AI needs to be able to harvest all this information as it helps the younger generation to organize all this new data. As of now, AI systems, they are just very, it doesn't mean that if you key in certain things, then it self improves, it self learns. No, it doesn't do that. Once you erase the chat history, everything goes away unless the programmer, the coder, uses the chat history and use it to train the data once again. So there's this lack of training loop for new knowledge into the existing AI system. And I believe that the new AI system is going to have this kind of loop so that it can grow more intelligently. But you always need to have humans at the forefront, and they are always experiencing new things because the environment is always changing. The and the environment, I'm not talking about the coding environment, the technology environment. I'm talking about sustainability issues. You have water rising, you have the temperature going up, humidity is increasing, and they're adapting new ways of working with the society, with their environment, and all this generate new data. And because of all these environmental changes, you have new behaviors from different types of people, migration of people around the world, and all these are changing societal behavior as well, which generates new experiences. Then AI must be able to capture all this. So they must be able to position themselves as an organizer of information to augment humans' experiencing of new experiences. Then they can stay in the loop and use that new knowledge to enhance themselves. Then CNA pointed out, okay, early teen years are use it or lose it time for developing skills. Why? At about, Davis said, at about age 11 for girls and 12 for boys, we have a time of neurological change. The gray matter in our brains as early teenagers is actually the fullest of our lives. So if you consistently repeat activities, say you're learning to play tennis or if you're out on the court every day, the connections are going to be strengthened. If you never do something, you're not going to develop those connections. The connections are literally being chopped if you don't use, but hardwired if we do use them. Well, I do agree to something. The gray matter in the brain as an early teenager is actually the fullest of our life. But I disagree that you'll be learning the best at age 11 to 12. Because if you know me, you know that I interact with a lot of CEOs from Singapore, a lot of former CEOs, and these people, they are like the top of our society. The age range is about 60 years old to 70 plus. And you imagine that, 60s, 70s, that's so old. But no, the 60s and 70s are the new 40s, man. Why do I say that? Because if you observe all these people, they keep themselves at the tip, at the leading age, right? They keep learning and so on. When you reach 60 and 70 years old, you still feel that you are 30 years old. It's like your brain, especially if you are a high performer, your brain is always like at 30 and 40 years old. You always think that you are young, but it's just that your body is 60 to 70 years old, even when you are 80 years old, but you keep at it. You keep learning, you always do something. This is the part that I agree with on her writing. That is, if you never do something, you're not going to develop those connection. And this group of people, I believe that they are always doing something every single day, every single minute. They're trying to learn and they're trying to apply themselves fully to value add to their society. So they always feel that they're 30 and 40. They always do that. But even though, young kids, they come, oh, these are grandpa, grandmas. But no, They still want to have fun. They still can think critically, and sometimes they can think even better than you. And the best part is when I feel, based on my experience interacting with these former CEOs and CEOs that are around 60 years and above, they have a very strong they have a very strong skill in knowing people's intentions. And I guess that they hone it over the years by interacting with different people. So this is a skill that is augmenting the ability to learn and value add. Yes, I do agree. Connections are literally being chopped off if we don't use them, but hardwired if we do use them. But I disagree that the best learning phase is from 11 to 12. I believe that it goes on until the end of life unless you have some brain damage. Then that's very difficult to say. Or maybe if there's some severe chemical changes in your brain or in your body. Otherwise, you can still learn, you can still value add. You look at those people who are in their 60s and 70s. They are like, still contributing, playing sports in the way that they can. They change their sports, but they're still playing, they're still learning extensively. It's not like they just sit at home and rot and sleep the whole day, right? They read books. And the best part is they still read books. Okay. They read books, they watch videos and so on. Anyway, let's move on. CNA say, you tell parents that chatting regularly with our kids can protect them from harm. How? Davis said, sharing stories and experiences is really important. I completely understand how busy everyone is, but I can't emphasize enough that making time and just sitting and chatting with teenagers is so important. Do not be put off by doors slamming. That behavior of teenagers is absolutely typical. They push you away, but they actually seek closeness. Um, I feel sorry for teenagers who are really tall because they can appear as adults, but they are not. They are teenagers and they want your time. Wow, this is so true. And the part, I feel sorry for teenagers who are really tall because they can appear as adults, but they are not. They're teenagers and they want your time. That's so true. That is a nugget of wisdom. When teenagers feel you've got that relationship with them, they are far more likely to come to you if they get caught up in doom scrolling, or they're being targeted by an extremist group, or they've gotten themselves into a mess. You want to be in a position where they feel comfortable talking to you. You're not going to go crazy and overreact. Listening is the key. Just relax and listen to what they have to say. Nuggets of wisdom. I hope everybody listens to this. Listening is key. Just relax and listen. Don't always offer solutions, scenarios. Why is this happening? They tell you, oh, I got bullied in school. Why are you getting bullied? Is it because you never tie up your hair? Is it because you got tattoos and so on? No, no, no. Just relax and listen to what they have to say. Okay, interesting article. Let's move on to the next one. Meta threatens to shut down Instagram, Facebook in New Mexico, if judge orders impractical kids protection. But that's something really shocking because I thought that the Mexicans are really big on Instagram. Let's see what they have to say. Wow. Look at Mark, still looking as dashing as before. Hold big tech accountable. Let's look at this. Mark's Meta is threatening a total shutdown of Facebook and Instagram in New Mexico if a state judge orders the company to adopt new safety features, according to the court filing on Thursday. Okay. Uh, Let me just stop for a while. Okay. Let me just say this podcast is sponsored by Active Secretary, and our range of cybersecurity product observes strict privacy policy and our company respect our users' privacy and data. One of our product is called ActiveGuard. ActiveGuard is our cybersecurity product to protecting Android phone. We'll be rolling other versions of ActiveGuard out soon. That is to protect Windows and iOS. So ActiveGuard is designed to protect your digital privacy and footprints. If you are interested in protecting your digital privacy, scan the QR code on the top left hand corner. That is the link to downloading ActiveGuard on Android phone. With that, you can protect your clipboard, your camera, your microphone, and even detect if there's any fraudulent login attempt on your phone. So if and that is just for the basic user. If you are a premium subscriber, you'll be able to get access to the latest threat intelligence that's available through our AI cybersecurity engine that leverages more than 4 million signal points and is growing day by day more and more. So if uh, you subscribe to this system, you will be able to leverage our and growing AI cybersecurity engine, and therefore optimizing your cybersecurity protection better every single day. So start protecting yourself, and your loved ones with the Active Guard. You can download it by using the QR code. It's very easy to use. Just download it, follow the instructions in the app, and you can start the protection. Download it for free, and you can subscribe it if you feel that it's value adding to you and your family. This antivirus defense is totally different from any kind of antivirus software that you find online. It's different from the one that is offered by Norton. It's different from the one that's offered by AVG and McAfee. It's totally different. It has an advanced antivirus, and it features a new intrusion detection system that monitors your phone 24/7 for malicious activities that happens in the background. So it's basically like an intelligent detection system that detects intrusion on your phone, and you will be very surprised when you see the type of apps that is working silently in the background and sending private information in the background to their server. Download this ActiveGuard in order to make use of this intrusion detection system. And in addition to that, there's other functions like clipboard monitoring to protect your password and your OTPs. And you can even monitor your microphone and camera in order to check if there's any hackers that is accessing your cameras and your microphone at the moment, so that you know which app to delete, which app to block, and when or not to use your camera or your microphone. This is totally revolutionary, is totally different from what is offered by other cybersecurity companies. It actually augments what they are offering, which means that if okay, so what happens is that Northern, AVG, and all these McAfee, they are offering the same product, and even Bitdefender, they are offering the same product that competes with each other. But for ActiveGuard, it's totally different. It actually augments all of them. So you can have on your phone installed with AVG, McAfee, Norton, and so on. And you can also install ActiveGuard because we are offering cybersecurity functions that is totally different from what they are offering. And if you are already using them, AVG and so on, go on, download ActiveGuard. Your cybersecurity protection will be fully optimized. Download it for free at the QR code at Google Play, and is okay, and start protecting yourself and your loved one. Now let's just go back to our article. Okay, now let's go back to Mark Zuckerberg. So he's threatening a total shutdown of Facebook and Instagram in New Mexico if a state judge orders the company to adopt new safety features. And the threat from Meta comes just weeks after a New Mexico jury slaps the company with a $375 million in civil penalties and ruled that the company failed to protect kids from sexual predators on its app. A state judge will decide what changes matter must make to fix this problem at the second phase of the trial, which is going to begin on 4th May. Now it's 1st May, Labor Day. So it's going to happen in 3 days' time. In its lengthy filing ahead of the bench trial, Meta warned that the state's requests for relief are so broad and so burdensome that if implemented, it might force Meta to withdraw its apps entirely from the state of New Mexico as an alternative way of complying with the injunction. The New Mexico Attorney General Raul Torres speaks during the news conference. This is from AP. He's trying to hold big tech accountable. It does not make economic sense. It does not make economic or engineering sense for Meta to build separate apps just for New Mexico residents. Whoa, separate apps, that's really difficult. You know, the thing about AI coding is even with AI, you have to be very careful with coding. You can't just drum up an AI vibe coded app and just serve it out. Even with AI, you can drum out apps faster, but still you have to go through the traditional routes of immense rounds of testing in order to make sure that the app works. So even if they decided to build separate apps, it's going to be very tedious, and they are going to dedicate additional headcount, substantial headcount in order to make it work. Well, I don't know how it goes. Let's check it out on the 4th of May. Meta's attorneys added, nor could Meta guarantee the perfection the state demands, making it impractical for Meta to operate in New Mexico. Meta's notice isn't necessarily an idle threat. In 2021, Meta briefly cut off access to news content in Australia to protest the passage of a local law, only to later reverse course after striking a deal with the authorities. While a full shutdown in New Mexico is possible, it would make the situation even messier, according to Ryan Carlo, a professor of the University of Washington, focused on the intersection of law and technology. Um, he says Meta could shut down in New Mexico. Sure, Carlo said. I think a blackout in one state would be comically easy to circumvent. For example, with a VPN. Who's responsible when invariably New Mexico residents continue to access Facebook? And of course, they would still have to pay for prior behavior in the state. Wow. They just want Meta to pay up. Okay. Even if the resident uses a VPN, Meta still has to be responsible for the past history of providing these type of content to the residents of New Mexico. And if this succeeds in New Mexico, other states might try the same again. Wow, the Meta lawyers have a difficult task ahead. Meta platform CEO Mark Zuckerberg arrives outside court to take the stand at trial in a key test case accusing Meta and Google's YouTube of harming kids' mental health through addictive platforms in Los Angeles. Whoa. So now let's continue. The filing drew a scathing response from Mexico's attorney, General Raul Torres, who said Meta was showing the world how little it cares about child safety. Meta's refusal to follow laws that protect our kids tells you everything you need to know about this company and the character of its leaders, Torres said in the statement. We know Meta has the ability to make these changes. For years, the company has rewritten its own rules, redesigned its products, and even bent to the demands of dictators to preserve market access, Torres added. Meta simply refuses to place the safety of children ahead of engagement, advertisement revenue, and profit. New Mexico prosecutors are expected to argue that Meta should enact several changes to protect its young users from harm, including an effective age verification process for accounts and recommendation algorithm that prioritizes user safety over boosting how much time they spend on the app. Well, actually, if you talk about this effective age verification process, for us, Active Secretary, we are working on a new side project that actually verifies age without really having the users to review too much personal details, because we don't want the users to expose themselves too much as well. Just from their behavior and usage with the phone, it will actually generate how determine how old is the user without the user offering too much detail and too much personal data, because we want to protect the privacy of the user. So this is one project that we're working on right now. But anyway, let's just go on. State officials also want Meta to display warning labels about the risk of using its apps, permanent bans for any adults found to be engaging in child abuse or exploitation, and an independent oversight committee to ensure the company's compliance. When reached for comment, a Meta spokesperson said the state's demands are technically impractical, impossible for any company to meet, and disregard the realities of the internet. Wow. In targeting a single platform, the state ignores hundreds of other apps teen use, leaving parents without the comprehensive support they actually deserve. The spokesperson said in a statement, while it is not in Meta's interest to do so, if a workable solution to Attorney General Torres' demands is not reached, we may have no choice. Facebook has no choice, Meta has no choice but to remove access to its platform for users in Mexico entirely. It seems like they might just go ahead with the plan. And once that happens, I wonder what's going to happen. When Trump decided long time ago decided that TikTok might be shut down, the possibility of having TikTok shut down if it's not being sold to US companies, right? Suddenly you have so many teenagers from USA protesting against Trump and the US government about the about this situation. They want TikTok. They have built their entire existence on TikTok. And when you threaten to take the platform away from them, these teenagers and young people, they threaten to, they protest. And I wonder if there are many content creators and users who are using these Facebook apps. For me, I don't use Facebook, I don't use Instagram, but if they do, and if they're heavy users of it, then I think it might actually ignite or incite a protest from the younger people of New Mexico. Let me just skip all this. It's so lengthy. Oh, so Matter also faced a wave of litigation from school districts, state attorney general, and individuals in California, federal court across multiple trials, and the first of which is slated to begin in June. So let's keep tab of this on this, and we'll see how it goes. Now we go to the third article that I'm going to share. Now, before we go to the third article, let me just uh, tell you something about this ActiveGuard. ActiveGuard is this cybersecurity solution that is provided by Active Secretary. It's one of our cybersecurity solution. So what ActiveGuard does is that it provides cybersecurity protection to Android users, and just on the base plan itself, you are able to enjoy the base protection on various functions of your phone. You can make use of the antivirus and you can make use of the highly advanced intrusion detection system that's able to detect malicious behavior that is running in the background of your phone. Then, in addition to that, you can monitor your clipboard, your microphone, your camera, and log in activities on your phone to ensure that your cybersecurity protection is fully maximized, fully optimized. And if you decided to subscribe to this ActiveGuard, what you're doing is that you're connecting to the AI cybersecurity system, to our cybersecurity system that leverages more than 4 million signals every day and is growing stronger every single day because the is growing stronger every day because this this more than 1000 plus signals are being added every single day, so it's growing more intelligent every day. So if you subscribe, it means that the protection for your phone is optimized and growing more intelligent every day. Then in addition to that, we are a Singaporean firm. We are not we are not an American firm. We are not a China firm. We are not a Korea firm, nor are we a Japan or Russia firm. We are currently based in Singapore, and we observe very strict privacy law. Therefore, and we have very strict privacy policy. So we respect your user privacy and data. ActiveGuard is designed to fully protect your digital privacy and your footprint. Okay. So if you are interested in downloading ActiveGuard, what you have to do is that you just have to download ActiveGuard at Google Play by scanning the QR code on the banner right now. You can also download Google Play by scanning the QR code at the top of the screen as well. They bring you to the same Google Play download page where you can download ActiveGuard and start using it for free. Test it out. You can use it as long as you want. If you think that it's really value adding, do subscribe to us and contribute to the cybersecurity ecosystem. So download ActiveGuard, protect yourself and your family. Use it for free, download for free, subscribe if you think that it's really value adding. And we hope to see you and your family getting protected by our advanced cybersecurity system. Now uh let's just go back to what we let's just go back to what to the third article. This third article is about Roblox, new developments in Roblox. So they are saying that Roblox is going to require facial scans for children under 16 years old in Indonesia due to the new social media rules. Well, in fact, I wouldn't say that. Why do they even need to have social scan like facial scans for young kids? I rather that they have facial scans for people who are above a certain age. Oh, okay, I get it. I get it. If you are under 16, let's say if you go onto Roblox and you declare that you are under 16, and if you declare that you're under 16, you may not be under 16 because that's the way some of the predators and some of the malicious actors might behave, right? They fake that they're 16, but in actual fact, they are not. So what they do is, so I guess that what Roblox right now is doing is, if let's say um, if you decided that on the page, login page, the registration page, that you put in that you're less than 16 years old, then it means that they will have to do a verification with your face and your actual age. But the thing is, for Indonesians, if you notice, a lot of them, they actually look very young, even when they're 20 years old, even when they're 30 years old, especially the girls, they look very young. So even when you're 20 plus years old, you can still look like you're under 16. So that's the thing about that. I think you will need to have an Indonesian to review all these kind of requests, because they would be in a better position to analyze, to judge whether or not the person's facial, based on the person's facial feature, is are they above 16 or are they below 16. Now let me just go through the article. Um, this is Jakarta. Roblox, a gaming platform popular with kids, announced on Thursday 30th April, yesterday, that children under 16 in Indonesia will be required to undergo facial scans to verify their age to comply with new restrictions on minors' use of social media and digital platform in the country. Nikki Jackson Kalako, Roblox vice president and global head of public policy. Wow. I guess it must be pretty good to work in Roblox. It's such an interesting place to work in. But given all these issues that is going on with Roblox right now, I presume it's pretty getting really hot in the boardroom. So they announced that the changes in a press conference in Jakarta, describing them among the strictest that the company has implemented anywhere in the world. She said the company has introduced tailored age-based accounts in Indonesia, Roblox Kids for age 5 to 12 with no chat features. That is really good. I applaud this move because this is really going to protect the children. A lot of malicious actors and hackers like to chat up young kids in that age group. So I really support that. Then they have Roblox Select for ages 13 to 15, which with chat features limited to parents, or approved families and friends. What does that mean? Let's see how it goes. The rollout involves automatically transitioning the 23 million accounts that identified as belonging to users under 16 by implementing age verification through facial scanning. So 23 million accounts are going to go through facial scan. That is a lot of data. They better have the right data privacy policy in place. Otherwise, they're going to get themselves sued by the Indonesian government. Any users in Indonesia who has not used that tool, who has no facial age estimated, will be automatically placed in a Roblox Kids account and will not have access to that chat. That's really good, the Roblox executive said. The age verification tool requires players to take a video selfie that will be used to estimate their age. Jackson Kalako said the date would be immediately deleted. The date would be immediately deleted. The age verification tool requires players to take a video selfie that will be used to estimate their age. But he said that the date would be immediately deleted. I don't know what it means. All right. So let's just move on. We don't keep anything, she said. Oh, they don't keep anything. So do they keep the photos? Do they keep the windows, the video selfie? If they do keep the video selfie, the Indonesian government has a case in regulating that part of the data. How do they handle that data? What is the data privacy policy surrounding the storage of those videos? Okay, so I guess Jackson Kolako said the date would be immediately deleted. What he means is that I think it's a spelling error by Asia One. I think what Asia One really means is Jackson Kolako said the data would be immediately deleted, which means that once you have taken the video selfie, the video itself, which means that it's the data, it would be immediately deleted. So they don't keep the video selfie within the storage of their company. So if they don't keep that video selfie, it means that it's very difficult. It's easier to manage that way. The Indonesian government doesn't have to regulate that part. So it makes it easier. It's just to take a video selfie to estimate against the age, after which it's immediately deleted, which is good. Which is good, okay? The number of Roblox users in Indonesia has reached approximately 45 million, with about 23 million of them being children, said Communications and Digital Affairs Minister uh, Metya Hafid. Roblox was the only gaming platform classified as high risk by the Indonesian government, and its access restrictions for children differ from those of other social platforms. In addition to account categories and interactions based on age. The interactive gaming platform will also categorize the types of games played by age. So now children can't just choose any games they can play. The games need to be age restricted by the designers. Maybe it has to be reviewed by Roblox review team before it's certified to be allow access to certain age group of players. So now the government regulation have prompted Roblox to limit usage time in the hope of reducing children's addiction to the platform. To address why the I think I wow, I imagine that TikTok would be worse than Roblox. But Roblox does set the precedent in managing this thing. I guess the second platform that the Indonesian government would be going after is TikTok. I guess. Who knows? Well, let's just continue. To address concerns about addiction, screen time limits are now in place. Parents can set specific times or hours for their children to play games, Hafid said. Indonesia began implementing a new government regulation at the end of March, banning children younger than 16 from accessing digital platforms that could expose them to addiction, pornography, online scams, and cyberbullying. Seven of the eight platforms classified as high risk, including YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, Bigo, Live, have committed have committed to restricting children's access to their services. In addition to restricting access based on age, Indonesia is urging social media companies and digital platforms to report the number of accounts that have been suspended as part of the implementation of government regulation restricting access for children. Oh, so right. They in addition to Roblox, it seems like Roblox is the only gaming platform that's being regulated at the moment because of the way that they have designed the gaming platform. It's a very strong and growing and addictive ecosystem because you have people who are producing stuff on Roblox. They can sell games, they can sell fashion accessories, and so on. And you have the huge demand by players to play and consume all these kind of assets. So it's the only gaming platform as I see from the list here. Then other than that, you have YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. I think less people are using YouTube right now. I don't know. I don't know how it goes. But young children, they like YouTube Shorts. They like TikTok. Young children definitely don't go to Facebook. Young children definitely don't go to Threads and Instagram. Most people don't go to X nowadays because X, less and less people go to X. I don't go to X anymore. I imagine that X is full of bots. Whoever I'm interacting with, they're most likely bots. And even if you post something, right, those who interact with you, those who like your content, they're most likely bots as well. So I don't like to interact with bots. And there's so much hatred, and there's so many videos. There's To me, there's like two types of videos from X. One is videos from the Western world, which is getting more and more boring. I keep seeing the same thing over and over again. It's always about the West. Or some hatred videos against the Indians, which really seriously gets very tiring to watch after watching a few videos. There's so many hatreds against Indians. They just love to stir the hatred for Indians on X. And it's always the content from Westerners. Western content creators on X is so boring as compared to places like YouTube, TikTok, where you have content from different parts of the world. You're exposed to different cultures from China, Japan, Africa, so many. It's not just from the West. It makes it so much vibrant if you are surfing on places like YouTube and TikTok. Facebook, I don't know. A lot of people are just there to read news. Nobody goes there to make new friends. Instagram maybe is for the teenagers, for them to post nice pictures of themselves. But even then, I don't know about it. A lot of bots. Threads, I haven't used it yet. Now, this Bigo Live is like some sexual streaming platform. I haven't really been there, but you have a lot of girls from developing countries dancing around, prancing around in scantily, in bikinis and so on. I mean, sure, it looks very sexual, and some people can be addicted to it. But if there's too many of this kind of thing, it gets very tiring to look at beautiful girls as well. One can get really tired from beautiful girls. It's so boring. You only have one kind of content, that is people prancing around in almost nude, prancing around scantily. So boring. So this is very interesting. They have a lot of accounts to transit, 23 million. This is a huge number. If everybody posts video verification from 23 million account, that's going to take up so much of their storage. So by deleting it after verification is a very smart move. First of all, you ensure that it doesn't consume too much of your storage, and this storage all costs money. You have to invest a lot of money in order to store and verify all these accounts, all these video selfies, even if it just happens for a few minutes. You have to pay for it. It comes at a cost, but it's going to bring safety to the users in Indonesia, but I'm not sure if they're going to carry out this for in other parts of the world. But it certainly is a learning exercise. If they succeeded with 23 million accounts, they can bring this experience to other parts of the world as well. Then if they don't store any video selfie, that's really good, because the Indonesian government won't be able to regulate them using the data privacy law, if they have any. So that's it for today's sharing. 3 articles. We hold this podcast regularly, and we try to talk about, curate the latest and more interesting news that parents might want to learn about cybersecurity and AI, and how it might affect their children, how it might affect their kids, and of course, how it might affect themselves too. Because what I believe in is that, this entire cybersecurity ecosystem, because parents, they are working and so on, they are holding, some of them are holding sensitive information from their corporates, from their company, and you spend a lot of time trying to protect all these secrets, when the weakest link are your children. Your phone is like, in some cases, your phone is your children's phone, and your children download all this kind of malicious app, strange stuff that they're doing on your phone. And when they do all this, right, they compromise your phone, and these hackers, they compromise your phones through your children, and they get access to your company's secrets and data. And therefore, these children, they are actually the weakest link of the entire cybersecurity ecosystem, which is why when we talk about cybersecurity and parenting, we really focus on the different aspect of the ecosystem, including all the stakeholders. So one of the way to optimize your cybersecurity protection is to download ActiveGuard. All right. ActiveGuard is free. Just download it. If you are not sure, okay, let me just explain exactly what ActiveGuard is. ActiveGuard, it leverages on the base plan itself. It can protect you using our cybersecurity and antivirus system. But if you subscribe and connect to our AI cybersecurity engine, you leverage more than 4 million signal point that our AI cybersecurity engine is leveraging on. And this engine is becoming more intelligent by 1,000 plus signals every single day. Now, in addition to that, if you are using ActiveGuard, we are a Singapore company, and we observe data privacy laws very strictly. So as a company, even without the Singapore ecosystem, we as a company observe strict privacy policy, and we respect your privacy and your data. So if you use our app, rest assured that none of your personal information will come to us. At most, it's just the identified threat that comes to us. And that comes to us in a bid to improve the overall cybersecurity ecosystem that we use to improve everybody's protection as well. So if you want to contribute to this, feel free to contribute. If you don't, Just switch it off in the settings, and no information from your phone will come to our phone. Remember, ActiveGuard is designed to protect your digital privacy, is to help you and your family. Therefore, just download ActiveGuard at the Google Play. It's very easy to access that. All you have to do is to scan the QR code, download the app, follow the instructions on the app, and you can start protecting yourself and your loved ones. Thank you for your attention during this podcast. We hope to see you in the next podcast, and we hope to create more articles like this so that you can keep abreast of what's happening in cybersecurity and AI and how it affects you and your children. I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.